Devaya. Chapter 16. Dev Asur Sampad Vibhav Yoga. The divine and demonic nature. Atha Chodasho Adhyaya. 16.1 to 3. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha. Abhyam Satva Samdhir Jnanam Yoga Vyavasthiti. Danam Damascha Yashnascha. Swadhiyayastapa Arjavam. Ahimsa Satya Makrodha Tyaga Shantir Chunam Daya Bhutesh Alok Rupatvam Mardhavam Harir Echapalam Teja Shamadhriti Socham Adroho Nati Manita Bhavanti Sampadam Devim Abhijatasya Bharata.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion of honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature.
16.4 Dambho darpobhimanascha krodha parusham evacha ajnanam cha bhijatasya partha sampadam ashvarim.
Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, O son of Pritha.
16.5 Devi sampadi mokshaya nibandaya suri mata masucha sampadam devim abhijatosi pandava.
The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities.
16.6 Dvabhuta sargo lokesmin deva asura evacha devo vistarasha prokta asuram partha me shrunu.
O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called the divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac.
16.7 प्रवृत्तिं च निवृत्तिं च जना विधुर असुरः न शोचं नापि चाचरो न सत्यं तेषु विद्यते.
Those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them.
16.8 अस्त्यम् अप्रतिष्ठं ते जगद अहुर अनीश्वरम् अप्रस्परा सम्भूतं किम् अन्यत् कामहेतुकम्.
They say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust.
16.9 एतां दृशिम् अवस्तभ्य नास्तमानो लिपबुद्ध्यः प्रभावन्ति उग्रकर्मणः क्षयया जगतो हिता.
Following such conclusions, the demoniac, who are lost in themselves and who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world.
16.10 कामम् आश्रित्य दशुपुरं दाम्भा मानमहन्विता मोहात् गृहीति वासद्ग्रहान् प्रवन्ते शुचिव्रतः.
Taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige, the demoniac, thus illusion, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent.
16.11 and 12 चिन्ताम् अप्रिमेयं च प्रलयान्तं नन्तं उपाश्रितः कामपभोगा परमा एतावत् इति निश्चितः आशपाशाशतिर्बुद्धा कामक्रोधप्रयणः इहन्ते कामभोगार्थम् अन्ययनर्था सञ्चयान्.
They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification.
Verse 16, 13 to 15. Idam adya maya labdham imam prakasya manoratham idam astidam api me bhavishyati punartanam aso maya hata shatrur hanishay chaparan api ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balvan sukhi adhyo bijanvan asmi konyosti sadrasho maya yakashe यक्षय दाशयामि मोदिष्य इति अज्ञाना विमोहिता.
The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance.
16.16 अनेकचिता विभ्रांता मोह जाला समार्वतः प्रास्कतः काम भोगेषु पतन्ति नरकेषु च.
Thus, perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into hell.
16.17 आत्मसंभवावितः स्तब्धा धनमानामदान्वितः यजन्ते नाम यजनेस्ते दाम्भेन विधिपूर्वकम्.
Self complacent and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifice in name only, without following any rules or regulations.
16.18 अहंकारं बलं दर्पं कामं क्रोधं च संश्रितः मामात्मा परदेहेषु तद तदविष्णतो भयात् स्यूयकः.
Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion.
16.19 तान् अहं द्विष्टः करुणान् समाश्चरेषु नराधमान् क्षिपामि अजस्रम् अशुभान् अश्रुसिव एव योनिषु.
Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life.
16.20 अशुरिं योनिम् अपनाना मूढ़ा जन्मनि जन्मनि मां प्रापयेव कौन्तेया ततो यान्ति अधमां गतिम्.
Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence.
16.21 त्रिविधं नरकास्यदं द्वारं नाशनम् आत्मनः कामः क्रोधस्तथा लोभस्तस्मात् एतत् त्रयं त्यजेत्.
There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul.
16.22 एतैर्विमुक्ता कौन्तेय तमोद्वारेस्त्रिभिः त्रिभिर्नरः आचरति आत्मनः श्रेयस्ततो याति परं गतिम्.
The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination.
16.23 या शास्त्राविधिमुत्सर्ज्य वर्तते कामकर्तः न सा सिद्धिम् अवाप्नोति न सुखं न परां गतिम्.
To discuss spiritual injections and acts according to his own whims.
Yash,
Attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination.
are you there, Yash?
He who
Hare Krishna?
discards
Have you read 23? We didn't hear you.
Oh, I just read it. Oh, okay. He who discards spiritual injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination.
16.24 तस्माच्चार चास्तरं परमानं ते कार्या कार्याव्या वसिष्ठितो ज्ञात्वा शात्वा शास्त्राविदोनिक कर्म कर्तुम् इहार्हसि.
One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated.
Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supnishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yog Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Dev Asur Sampad Vibhag Yog Nama Shodasho Adhyaya.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Girish Prabhu, for stepping in today. Appreciate it. And thank you, Yash, as always, for your powerful recitation in English. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone to today's session of our chat. And a special warm welcome to Meenakshi Madhavi Devi Dasi, who is joining us for the first time. Hare Krishna, Mataji, welcome.
Hare Krishna.
So, what we normally do is for the first 10 to 15 minutes, we recite the entire chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And then sequentially, we choose a verse and we discuss it in more detail. Or if there's a group of verses, we discuss that. So this is what we will do now. We will discuss the verses a bit more. So I'll stop sharing and share my screen. So chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures. As we've been reading and understanding through the recitation, this chapter is more about the demoniac natures. Krishna briefly explains what is the divine nature, and Krishna at length goes on to describe what is the demoniac natures. So we went through those sections in the text. Text 4 to 8 is called Asura Sampada. Krishna is describing the demoniac qualities in these verses. Now, without looking at your books or your notes, can some of you just put up your hand or mention some of the demoniac qualities that Krishna has explained in those verses 4 to 8? Anything that stands out?
Unclean.
Unclean, yes.
Ignorance.
Ignorance, yes.
lust,
Pride.
Pride.
Greed.
Greed.
pride,
Greed.
Lust, false ego,
Lust,
Anger.
false ego,
Arrogance.
arrogance.
Desire. Desire.
What type of desire?
Fruitive desires to sexual and another type of trying to get more money or monetary.
Yes.
Always intense into that.
Yes.
aggressiveness,
Aggressiveness, yes.
Anger.
Anger,
strength, pride,
pride, yes.
false ego,
False ego, yes. So many qualities Krishna has described about the demoniac. He said, pravritim, nivritim. They do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. They are completely lost. They have no cleanliness, socham. They have no good behavior, achara. Truthfulness, satyam, does not exist in them. Everything is false. They see the world as false, asatyam, without foundation, and they are lost to themselves. So this was described in text 4 to 8. And then we came on to text section 4 to 20, which we are in the middle of right now. And these are the activities of the demonic persons and what is the consequence of those activities. And also there are some other subtleties. So this is what we will discuss. So before we do that, we'll recite the Mangala Charanam prayers. And you can join in via unmuted mics also. Om Jnana Timiranda Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Bhacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadhi Paschachadeshatarine Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today's verse Idam adyamayam labdham imam prapsye manoratham Idam astidam apime bhavishyati punardanam Asomaya hata shatru anisye chaparanapi Ishvaraho ham bhogi sidoham balavam sukhi Adyo bhijavan asmi konyo asti sadrisho maya yakshe dashyami modishya iti agyana vimohitaha. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The demoniac persons think, how much wealth do I have today? And how much will I gain more according to my schemes? So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. And I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. There is no purport to this verse. So what I thought is, let me share at least a bit of a lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave on this particular verse. So we shall try to do that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So hopefully you will hear this.
idamagdamaya labdham imam prapse manoratham idam asti idam api me bhavishyanti punardhanam aso maya hatat satru nishe cha aparanapi isharoham aham bhogi siddhoham balvan sukhi athoham abhijana janavanasmi ko annasti madrisho maya jakhi dasami modisya iti ajnana vimohita. So, last night we discussed about the demons thinking asapasa sati badhya. He does not know that so long I shall be aspiring more and more. I am getting entangled more and more within this material world. Because Krishna is so kind. He has given me freedom to enjoy this material world. But according to my work, I am becoming implicated. So long I will have a pinch of desire for enjoying this material world, I will have to accept a typical body. This is the law of nature. When you will actually be free from all material desires, then it is called mukti. Mukti, liberation. That is liberation. That standard of mukti standard or mukti platform is bhakti yoga. No desire does not mean no desire for serving Krishna. That is real desire. Other desires are artificial. That is material. But the desire that is called Krishna consciousness. When all our desires are for serving Krishna, desires you cannot give up. That is not possible. Desires will remain there. But at the present moment, in the conditional stage, the desires are being misused. That is the defect. Therefore, the definition of bhakti means annavilasita sunnam. Sunna means zero. That is called nirvana. The Buddha philosophy advocates nirvana. No more desire. That is that philosophy. By desire, you are becoming implicated. So, make all your desires extinct. Then there will be no more feelings of pains and pleasure. Desirelessness.
Hare Krishna. So it's beautiful to hear Srila Prabhupada speak. These transcendental words coming from his transcendental lips. I hope you all liked listening to that.
Yes, Prabhuji, it was nice.
Yes,
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Nice
Yes,
to hear
Very nice, Hare
Prabhupada's
Krishna.
voice.
Yeah, and we were hearing Prabhupada recite the Sanskrit, so
Mm.
which is really amazing.
Mm.
So we'll discuss a little bit more in what remains in our time. The first thing that struck me about this verse, but just before I do, just put this into context. So text number 10, as described, text 10 to 20 is describing the activities of demonic people and the consequences. So text number 10 has described the tendency and the conduct of demonic persons. Taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige, the demoniac, thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. So text number 11 and 12, which we discussed yesterday, describe the attitude and the engagement of the demoniac. And Krishna says, they believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable, bound by a network of hundreds and thousands of desires, and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. So this verse follows on from this particular aspect of the verse. They secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. So in these verses that we are reading today, Krishna is describing the particular attitude of those, thoughts of those who have gained wealth. How do they think about themselves? What is their consciousness? And this is this verse. What I found very interesting about this verse, that the Lord is describing an attitude and a consciousness that he has never experienced and will never experience. Because these thoughts, Krishna is supremely pure. But yet being the super soul within the heart of all living entities. Krishna is witness to all of the thoughts. And thus, Krishna is able to describe, just like in the previous purport, Srila Prabhupada says, there's two birds sitting on a tree. One is eating the fruits and the other one is observing. So Krishna is simply observing, and he's describing this attitude. And this must be something Krishna cannot really identify with, but the Lord describes it. And there are different aspects to it. First aspect is they are preoccupied with gaining wealth. And he said, so much wealth I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. Just recently, I was reading that the two richest people in the world is Jeff Bezos, who's the owner of Amazon, and the other is Elon Musk, who is the chief CEO of Tesla Corporation. And they are billionaires. Now there is a competition to see among the two of them who will reach the first trillion among men. No human being has previously acquired wealth worth $1 trillion, but the race is on. So this wealth, or this desire to have wealth, it's insatiable. And they will continue to make schemes of how to get more and more wealth. And the next Krishna says, so much is mine now and it will increase in the future. So the whole consciousness is of increasing more and more. And Prabhupada said, the demoniac or the materialistic persons, their purpose in life is to increase the fever. Prabhupada described this material consciousness like a disease, when someone has a disease, they have a fever. And the material consciousness, the fever is, I have so much now and I want to increase it. And Prabhupada says, one who is Krishna conscious, they want to decrease the fever. And I was reading one lecture by Srila Prabhupada today. He was saying a devotee should only keep, as far as wealth is concerned, only keep that which is necessary for living a simple life. You should keep some money, 25%, Prabhupada writes, for personal emergencies. And the remaining should go to help to spread Krishna consciousness. Because the moment one acquires and starts to build a big bank balance, there is a certain type of consciousness that comes with that. And that's the demoniac consciousness. Srila Prabhupada used to say, his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the moment the organization would get money, he would say, spend, spend. And Srila Prabhupada also said that. The moment the International Society for Krishna Consciousness gets money, spend. Spend, publish literature, give Krishna Prashadam, give people Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said, if too much money is accumulated, then the members of the society will become corrupt. So that is one very important insight, which can also have relevance into our own life and our own consciousness. The next interesting aspect is, he is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. So we'll talk a little bit later about some specific examples of demons from the Srimad Bhagavatam who have that. But the nature of one who is demoniac, practically they see everyone as enemy, even their own family members. They feel that they are plotting to usurp their wealth. And the devotee is just the opposite. In the beginning, we read, or previously in the Bhagavad Gita, we read that the devotee, or one who is Krishna consciousness, Krishna conscious, one of the qualities is they don't see anyone as enemy. So in that lecture I shared with you, I only was able to share a part of it. But one part of the lecture, Srila Prabhupada talks about this attitude of enemy. And he talks about it in the context of a pure devotee. So I'll read a bit from the same lecture. So Prabhupada says, Asomaya ataha. Thinking of others are enemy. Actually, in the highest status of life, a devotee does not think anyone as enemy. How is that possible? Prabhupada says, Samaha sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. That's from Bhagavad Gita 1854. Samaha, he knows that no one can become my enemy unless Krishna desires. So why should I think of him as my enemy? So please pay it's a very interesting what Srila Prabhupada is explaining. So pay careful attention to why it is a devotee cannot have an enemy. Prabhupada says, nobody can become my enemy unless Krishna desires. So why shall I think of him as my enemy? And then Srila Prabhupada explains, Krishna has desired him to act as my enemy just to correct me, just to make me more advanced in spiritual life. So why should I take any action upon him as an enemy? Of course, this stage is meant for very highly elevated devotee, not meant for ordinary devotee. But the fact is this, how can one become my enemy? If I am Krishna's servant, how can one become my enemy? If he's acting as my enemy, it is Krishna's desire. I have got some defect and he's correcting me. There it is called Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. That is the topmost devotee's conception. So it's a very interesting explanation Srila Prabhupada is giving here. So Prabhupada is saying that a devotee is consciousness. Right? If I am a devotee of Krishna, I understand that everything that happens in my life has to be sanctioned by Krishna. As Prabhupada says, in this world, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of Krishna. So if someone is now acting as my enemy, right, it means if Krishna sanctions everything, then Krishna has sanctioned this person to act as my enemy. And I know as a devotee that Krishna will never sanction anything that is not good for me. That's the nature of Krishna. Krishna does not sanction anything that is not for the ultimate good of a devotee. So that means Krishna has sanctioned this person to become my enemy because Krishna wants to teach me something. And as Prabhupada says, yeah, to correct me, to help me make more advancement in my spiritual life. So if I'm in that consciousness, then I can't see him as an enemy. He's simply an instrument that Krishna has sent to help me advance and come closer to him. And this is in such contrast to the mentality of a materialist or a demoniac person. It is said in the Mahabharata, a demoniac persons, they see everyone as they are. Because they are envious, because they have enmity, envy comes from the word enmity toward others, therefore they see everyone. But how liberating it is to have this consciousness of the devotee, the divine consciousness, where everyone, and we all have experience in this life. So many people come and we think sometimes they're coming in the guise of our enemies. But one who is really surrendered to Krishna, one who is really in divine consciousness, there is no enemy. Samaha sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labatim param. Krishna says he sees all living entities equally. There's no distinction. So that is the next consciousness. Then the other aspects of the consciousness described is the consciousness that I am the controller and enjoyer. It indicates one who is very strongly connected to the false ego and to matter, thinking that the body is all that is. And they are very much, false ego means the spirit soul has nothing to do with the body. But under the influence of the false ego, the soul actually thinks themselves to be the body. And when they think like that, what is their consciousness? I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. And the materialists, they think if they can control everything around them, the people around them, the environment around them, then they will be happy. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in one book, Bhakti Loka, he says, you've got it wrong. You think by controlling others, you will become happy. He said, no. First, you control yourself. And when you're able to control yourself, then you are able to control others. Meaning, the materialists, they do everything in a perverted way, the wrong way around. We know from personal example that if we meet someone who is completely in control of themselves, we know that such a person is worthy to get our surrender. And we are happy to put ourselves under their control, like the spiritual master, the disciple says. As Srila Rupa Goswami explains in the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction. One who is able to control the urges of the senses, the mind, and the intelligence, he can make disciples. So people have got it wrong. The demoniac, they think they shall control everything else and they'll be happy. And the devotee thinks, no, if I control myself, then I'll be happy. And then and this is actually a very important one. And on the path of sadhana bhakti, we are sadhakas. We have to be very wary of this. It may not happen in a gross way like the demoniac people do. But in subtle ways, this tendency and this consciousness to control and be the enjoyer. Sometimes in devotional service, we see too. People come to the temple, or in devotional service, they get some leadership position. And then they want to try to control the other devotees also. Even in devotional service. I've seen it so many times. They carry the demonic mentality with them into devotional service. And also the enjoyer. The devotee thinks everything is meant for the enjoyment of Krishna. Let me see what I can do to increase Krishna's enjoyment. The focus is not on how I can increase my enjoyment. How can I increase Krishna's enjoyment? I am perfect and powerful, meaning we're thinking everything is done by my potency, our potency. Again, this is under the false ego. A devotee never takes credit. If he attains some position, if he attains some popularity, he always gives credit to his guru, the previous acharyas, and the Lord. And when Srila Prabhupada said, he said, I have done nothing. I have simply repeated what I have heard from my Guru Maharaj. Everything that has happened in this Krishna consciousness movement is simply by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj. And lastly, my enemies are defeated and I am happy. So that is the general consciousness. Because of time, you can read, this is the story of King Vena. He was the son of King Anga, which is described in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Our King Vena, although his father was a great devotee, because his mother came from the descendancy of the Lord of Death, he inherited his mother's qualities and he became very demoniac. And he was creating havoc in the kingdom. So the Brahmanas got together and they spoke to him. They appealed to him to change his ways. And he was so deluded that he's saying, I am the king. The king is the representative of all the demigods and the Supreme Lord. Therefore, your first duty is to worship the king, even before you worship anybody else. And he made the Brahmanas very angry and they killed him. Here we see Kamsa, his own sister Devaki. He heard that the 8th son of Devaki will kill him. And from that point onwards, he could only see his own sister as enemy. Not only his own sister, he saw everyone as enemy. And he sent so many demons to Vrindavan to kill Krishna. This is Hiranyakashipu. His own son, his own child, innocent child, he saw as enemy. And he did so many atrocities to Prahlad Maharaj. This is a very famous song by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Amar Jivan. And although Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a pure devotee, A pure devotee sees themselves as the lowest of the low, although they are so advanced. And the demoniac person, although they are so degraded, they see themselves as the highest, as the high. And we see this in this verse, and I'll just talk about it before we finish. So this song you can listen to is a beautiful song called Amar Jivan. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, I am an impious sinner and have caused others great anxiety and trouble. I have never hesitated to perform sinful act for my own enjoyment. Devoid of all compassion, concerned only with my own selfish interest, I am remorseful seeing others happy. I am a perpetual liar, and the miseries of others is a source of great pleasure for me. The material desires within the core of my heart are unlimited. I am wrathful, devoted to false pride and arrogance, intoxicated by vanity, and bewildered by worldly affairs. Envy and egotism are the ornaments I wear. Ruined by laziness and sleep, I resisted all pious deeds. Yet I am very active and enthusiastic to perform wicked acts. For worldly fame and reputation, I engage in the practice of deceitfulness. Thus, I am destroyed by my own greed, and I am always lustful. A vile, wicked man, such as this, rejected by godly people, is a constant offender. I am such a person, devoid of all good works, forever inclined towards evil, worn out and wasted by various miseries. Now, in my old age, deprived of all means of success, humbled and poor, Bhakti Vinod submits his tale of grief at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. This is such a beautiful song by by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It has deep meaning. And when we read it, although Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is singing this from the point of complete humility, we can see, introspect also, and see how advanced we've become, how much of is there. I am powerful, perfect, powerful, and happy. They think they are happy, but actually they're in distress. And I'll just close off with this last sentence, which is a phrase which is very interesting. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. There are many people, especially in the Hindu tradition, actually, if you examine their consciousness is 3/4 or at least 50% of the consciousness of demonic persons. But they perform sacrifices. They give in charity. But they do that with ulterior motives. And when they do that, they do it out of false ego. When they give some charity or they perform sacrifice, they want it to be advertised. And this is not the quality of one who is in divine consciousness. Therefore, Krishna very nicely drops in this last sentence so that we can recognize and do not also think there is a rich man. He's performing sacrifices. He's giving in charity. He's such a divine personality. We should give him some prominence in our society. No. We should be wary. We should be wary. There are some pious people that do this. No doubt about that. But there are also some with ulterior motives. And we should not fall into that trap. So I'll stop here. It's 8:36. I'll take any questions, comments, or reflections. So interesting. You know, it's almost, sometimes when we read all of this demonic, some people may think this section of the Bhagavad Gita is actually depressing. But actually, it's very enlivening to understand how Krishna, although he can have no experience of any of these qualities, how he is explaining it to us for our own purification. It's all about purification for the devotees. So any reflections by anyone? Questions, comments? What thoughts were going through your mind when we were reading? Unmute yourself if you have to say anything.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So demonic people, it's very difficult for them to see any other way, because they think they are correct in what they think. They can't see or be persuaded to think otherwise.
Yes.
Because then Ravana got killed, in the end they all faced death. So we've got to save ourselves from that kind of demoniac thinking.
Yes, definitely, Mataji. Thank you for that reflection. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandava Pranam.
Leela Purushottam Prabhu, so nice to hear you.
Thank you. Well, although I'm a bit tired and bit slow, my speed is only 10 miles an hour. Your speed is 100 miles an hour. So you'll have to bear with me, tolerate with me. Just a little, if you like to call it a reflection, or regarding the example you quoted about the two guys. They want to be the richest personalities in the world. And yeah, from my own personal life also, initially, obviously, I used to, because you from Africa, I'm also from East Africa, so you can understand that, coming over to this country, you compare the equivalent into local currency in Africa, and then you think, oh my God, I have a long way to go and catch up and all that, that I'm left behind. But then I reached a stage where Krishna kindly put sense into me to put a stop to it. Forget about the competition and trying to chase the money. Because as you can understand, initially when we come to the country, you find everything very expensive and everything. So luckily, Krishna prevented me from being greedy. Let's put it that way, although I'm not very good at explaining. So then today we had another Zoom meeting with the disciples and well-wishers of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And although he's my Guru Maharaj, I didn't know about one pastime, so I thought I'd share it with you. The one devotee, very senior devotee, he was Maharaj's secretary about 30 years back. And so being a secretary, he was looking after the Lakshmi and everything. And there was a huge amount, you can say a pile of Lakshmi, in one sense, if you like. Although, of course, the sannyasis, they don't want anything for themselves. So then at the end of the day, he saw that the pile was completely reduced. There was nothing left. So meaning, sannyasis are not attached to all this wealth and whatnot, fame and all that. So then he was really, he had a lot of realization from that. So I thought maybe these sannyasis in ISKCON, they teach us such wonderful examples, So thank you very much. And yeah, basically from my personal, I'm nearly 80 now. So my personal suggestion or advice to everyone is whatever is meant to come in our way, it will come. But we no need to be greedy, and whatever we can, we should use it in Krishna's service. That's all I wanted to share. In simple term. I can't quote any verses or anything. Maybe one or two here and there. But so that's all I wanted to share with you, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's our pleasure to hear from you. Such an
Thank you very much. So
senior
yeah, I'm always learning. I'm always learning from all these wonderful nectarian classes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Jai.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your realizations. There are a few questions that have come through on the chat.
Okay.
Federation has said, how shall one deal with people who have a certain level of demoniac nature, especially at workplace? Well, that's an interesting one because it's so relevant to us. Many of us have to work. We have to deal with people who have demoniac tendencies. It's interesting. One is at a very advanced stage, we can take the completely humble position and see them as Srila Prabhupada has explained, that they are not enemy. But on a less advanced stage, or to deal with the contemporary world, there are certain things we can do. Because if we don't take action, these demoniac persons, they'll take advantage of us. The story is of Narad Muni. Once he had a snake as a disciple. And the snake, after becoming a disciple, he became very realized. And he no longer behaved like a venomous, envious snake. He was just pacified and wouldn't do anything. But the local village people noticed this about the snake. And they started to always stones at the snake and injure the snake and harass the snake. So one day the snake heard his guru, Narad Muni, came to meet the snake. And the snake said, Guru Maharaj, this is what's happening to me. I try to act according to your instructions, but these people are now taking advantage of me. What should I do? Then Narad Muni instructed him. He says, when they come to harass you, you raise your hood and you act like you're going to pounce on them. But internally, you keep your humble disposition.
Said something.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah. Was it okay?
Is it? Are you?
Yeah. So to answer your question is, when there are envious people in your workplace, do not allow them to trample over you. Externally, you act in a way that they are not allowed to take advantage of you. As Prabhupada says, devotee does not mean we become a doormat. But don't become too much engaged. Sometimes when we become completely mental. He's my enemy. He does this. I should do this. I should do that. And completely on and we lose our Krishna consciousness. No. Internally, we be strong, very strong. And we all of goes through that. Even myself, I go through that in my own dealings in my own life. Externally, we understand, as Krishna says, they are simply acting according to their nature. We don't really see them internally as enemy, but externally, if they start to act in a way, we do not allow it, we push back. So I hope that answers your question. There's Puja Mataji's comment. Nice realization that even with one desire, one is to take birth in material world. Again, yes, Puja Mataji, you listened very carefully to Srila Prabhupada's lecture where he said, even if you got the slightest desire, you have to take birth again. And Prabhupada nicely says, to conceive not to have any desire is almost so daunting, so frightening to us. But Prabhupada, as the wonderful spiritual master, he says, no, we don't give up desires. The soul is full of desires. But we have to transfer our desires from selfish desires to desires to please the Lord and his devotees. The activities don't need to change. It's just the consciousness needs to change. So Rasalila Srimati Mataji, thank you. Another message here, reflection. These are the words of Krishna, God in person who has spoken to Arjuna. Therefore, these are perfect truths. Joined class late, but what I heard, very nice class and presented so well. Haribol, all things will, sorry, there's a message came to, all things will come to pass, but Krishna consciousness, it is like when the rain falls, it will fall, but if you are under the shelter of umbrella, you will not get wet. Take shelter of Krishna. Beautiful realization. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hare Krishna. Anyone else has any reflections, questions, comments before we close today's class? No? Okay. So thank you so much, everyone. You all are the loyal followers. Yeah, always coming and reading. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Krishna
Prabhuji.
Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Krishna
Glory to
Prabhuji.
the
Hare
more
Krishna,
service.
Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
Krishna.
Thank you.